Hey guys, Mark Meckler here, president of Convention of States, and it is time for the Sunday night BattleCry. And you can see I got all dressed up for you guys because I don't know, I just felt like getting dressed up. Maybe because things are starting to feel official and exciting, and everything's happening, and the administration's starting to get rolling. And I'm feeling like right now we need to seize the moment. I mean, this is the time for us. It's the time for the country, but specifically, it is the time for COS. And one of the things we want to do, and I'm going to explain to you why, is we want to make sure that President Trump knows about Convention of States. So if you go to conventionofstates.com/Trump, conventionofstates.com/Trump, what that's going to allow you to do is sign an open letter to President Trump asking him personally to support Convention of States. And he should. Why should he? He should, because everything that he wants to do in his administration, at least the vast majority of it, can be reversed in 5 minutes by the next leftist administration. I'm not just making that up. I mean, if you've been alive for the last 4 years, you actually saw that happen. President Trump and his administration did a lot of good things the first time around. I think we're going to see a lot more good things this time around. But 5 minutes into the Biden administration and every minute thereafter, they erased all the things President Trump did. So if we want the things that President Trump is going to do to stick, things like election integrity reform, things like term limits, maybe, I don't think he can even get that out of Congress, things like balancing the budget or cutting spending. We need to lock those things in with constitutional amendments. That locks in Trump's legacy. It protects the country. And it is what Convention of States is all about. So go to conventionofstates.com/Trump, sign the petition to President Trump. And our goal, by the way, is to get 1 million people to sign that petition like that. We need to get that done very quickly. If we get it done quickly, at that point, we'll get it to Trump. I'm not going to send him if you just got, me and you and a couple of friends. But if we can get 1 million signatures, and I think we can, we'll get that to Donald Trump. I promise you, we will get it to him. How do I know we can get it to him? Because the COS train is rolling. And you're on that train, and it long ago left the station. And now we have multiple COS endorsers are being nominated to senior positions in the upcoming administration. If you don't already know this, man, trust me, you're going to be excited because I'm really excited. Here's what you might not know. Vice President-elect J.D. Vance is an endorser, a supporter of Convention of States. He signed a document saying he was all in when he was running for the Senate. So we have the upcoming Vice President of the United States on board. How about Speaker Johnson, Speaker of the House of Representatives? So the Vice President and the Speaker, as if that were not enough. How about Vivek Ramaswamy, who is going to be one of the leads on DOGE? We're going to talk more about DOGE later. But Vivek Ramaswamy, I think he has Elon's ear, so maybe we get in Elon's ear. By the way, if you're going to tweet about this, if you're going to post on X about this, you should definitely tag Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, because both of those guys, Vivek, we already know is on board with COS, but we got to get Elon on board. And we do that by tagging them when you post about this kind of stuff. How about Mike Huckabee? Mike is going to be the ambassador to Israel, long time supporter of Convention of States. Maybe I think our first supporter after Mark Levin. So he's been with us for a very long time. He's going to Israel, which I think is a great appointment. Pete Hegseth, another very long-term COS supporter, really great personal friend, great friend of Convention of States. He's going to be our next SecDef. He's going to go through a rough confirmation hearing, but he's going to get through. We're going to do everything we can to help him. Caroline Leavitt, I think this one is totally amazing. She's going to be, I think, the youngest press secretary in the history of the presidency. She's 27 years old. She was once a rep in New Hampshire at 24 years old and a big supporter of Convention of States. And last but not least, Marco Rubio going off to be Secretary of State, another supporter of Convention of States. So when you see all of that stuff, all of those people going into the administration at high levels, prominent positions that have been announced, these are not backbenchers. These are not 3 levels down in the org chart. These are very top people. You see those people going into the administration, you know that the train has left the station and that COS is leading the way. You're on the train. We need to make sure everybody else is on the train. Again, go to conventionofstates.com/Trump, sign the open letter to President Trump. And when you're tweeting about this, when you're posting on X about this, make sure that you tag. You can even tag J.D. Vance, tag Vivek, tag Elon Musk. We'd love to get Elon on board. I think he will be on board once he learns about it. So I'm super excited. I got all dressed up for this about what's happening in the upcoming administration. Let's talk some particulars. There have been a lot of great appointments over the last couple of weeks. And I want to lead off with what's been the most controversial and difficult one, and that was for Attorney General. I think this is really important. The Attorney General leads the DOJ. The DOJ has been completely and totally corrupt. It has now become an institution of the government, the federal government, against the citizens of the United States of America. We got to fix that. We need somebody to clean it out. The president nominated first Matt Gaetz, Representative Matt Gaetz from Florida, to do that. Gaetz went around, talked to a bunch of the senators, faced really stiff headwinds, and eventually withdrew. And I want to be clear, it seems to me that Matt Gaetz was not forced out. It was not a deep state play. It looks like he withdrew. I don't know if he withdrew because he didn't like the stuff that was out there about him, or he withdrew because it was just clear that he didn't have the votes. He'd gone around and talked to senators. I think it was pretty clear he didn't have the votes for confirmation. I think if something's close, that President Trump can and will push it across the line, but it looked like the headwinds were just too severe. Matt Gaetz is out. So next up in the nomination slate for Attorney General is former Attorney General of Florida, Pam Bondi. And I think Pam Bondi is going to sail through to confirmation. She appears to be highly qualified. She was the AG in Florida. She was a very good, very aggressive AG in Florida. I think very good with the press, and that's super helpful. I'm not quite certain about this. I haven't looked it up. I don't pay attention to these things, but I think she might be the first woman ever nominated to be Attorney General. No, I guess we had Loretta Lynch as Attorney General. I think there have been a few. Okay, so never mind on that part. But I would argue that coming from Florida, very strong, big state, great experience. And I wasn't entirely sure of this pick yesterday, and then I thought about it overnight. And really the thing that gave me great comfort is that Pam Bondi is actually a friend of the president's and has been loyal to the president and is going to take this personally, as she should. And really, I think she's going to go after the people that went after President Trump inside the DOJ. And I think she is going to go after them aggressively. And like I said, take it personally. I think she's going to clean out the DOJ. So I'm super excited about that. There are some assistant and deputy AG picks that I've seen that I already like a lot. So I think we're going to see a house cleaning at DOJ. I think it's going to be very painful for the status quo at the DOJ, and that makes me smile. For the Department of Education, Linda McMahon, and I think that's an interesting one. She was head of the SBA, the Small Business Administration, in the former Trump administration, a friend of the Trump family, definitely a businesswoman that had incredible experience. And Trump has talked about shutting down the Department of Education. I think Linda McMahon is tough enough and savvy enough to do it. She's coming out of a stint as the chair of the board of directors at America First Policy Institute. She was in charge of their education efforts over there. She knows education. She's an education choice hawk. I think she's going to be great in that position. Department of Interior, that went to Doug Burgum, who ran for president, governor of North Dakota, deals with Department of Interior issues in North Dakota, where the federal government controls way too much land, like in so many states, especially the western states. So he has a sensitivity for issues that I want to see him sensitive to. He's also going to be heading a council that it deals with multiple agencies and energy. His job is going to be free up energy production in the United States. I think this is going to lead to a boom. And I think Burgum, as a successful businessman and a governor of an oil state, is the right guy for this position. So excited about that one too. Head of DOGE, and DOGE being the Department of Government Efficiency, you have Elon Musk. What can you say? I mean, the real world Tony Stark, Iron Man kind of a guy, right? Who's doing things nobody else can do. The richest man on earth, who knows about efficiency. He cut 80% of the positions from Twitter, now X, and turned it into a much more efficient entity, which, by the way, now is the #1 news delivery platform in the world, like way bigger than CNN by far, New York Times, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, all of them. X is the biggest news platform in the world. And so he's got a great platform. I think he's got the right ideas about cutting government down to size. And next to him is Vivek Ramaswamy, a COS endorser, and a guy who I also think is a very smart businessman, very serious. If you haven't read his book, Truths, I highly recommend it. He goes through 10 undeniable truths. This is sort of his principles when he was running for president. I think you'll like that a lot. So I think we're going to see good stuff out of DOGE. They don't have actual authority, so this is going to be interesting. All they could do is make recommendations. We'll see how many of their recommendations get initiated. I think one of the interesting things they're doing is they're already putting up a public website. They're going to point out all this fraud, waste, and abuse. They're going to do it publicly. They're going to humiliate people. I think that makes it way easier to cut this stuff. So I think Doge is going to have a big role to play. Department of Defense is a mess. Chaos from top to bottom. Seems to me that they've made their primary issue a social experiment in order to impose woke ideology upon all of us, and that has to end. And they've nominated, President Trump has nominated his good friend, our good friend, Pete Hegseth, for this position. Pete, of course, is a veteran, 2 different theaters, a real warrior, a guy who's been out there in the field under fire, who knows what not only what veterans need, but what our military needs. He has promised to clean out the woke and clean it out immediately, go back to real standards, go back to real war fighting. He understands that the job of the military is to break things and kill people. And he is going to focus on that at the DOD relentlessly, ruthlessly. Brilliant guy, degrees from Princeton and Harvard. This guy knows his stuff. He's been paying attention to this issue for a long time. And I can tell you, of everybody I've met in the media, this guy is as true blue as anybody. So I'm excited about what's going to happen at the DOD. At Health and Human Services, we have, of course, probably now the most controversial pick now that Matt Gaetz is out, and that is RFK Jr. And I don't agree with everything RFK Jr. says, but I do think he is a solid pick for this position. I've met him. I've personally spent time with him. I think he's got his head on straight when it comes to these institutions. And I think he's going to do his best to reform them and to have them actually working for American good, regulating our foods in a way that makes them safe and is not just in favor of the food industry, not just in favor of the pharmaceutical industry. So that's going to be a little bit of a controversial hearing. It'll be interesting to see. You know, the left loved this guy just a few years ago. I think Obama was talking about making him the head of the EPA or something like that. Today, they hate him because he's with Donald Trump. This is going to be a very, very interesting confirmation hearing. The FBI is one that really interests me. We don't have anybody announced yet. Mike Rogers, former congressman, had been floated, and the grassroots went crazy, and reformers went crazy, as they should. Mike Rogers would have been a bad guy in that position. He is part of the intel apparatus. So now we're talking about, drum roll, please. It's Kash Patel would be my favorite for that position. Kash is a wrecking ball. The FBI needs a wrecking ball inside it, and I think he could actually do it. So I think it's fantastic. All the appointments, obviously, I didn't cover them all. There are many more junior appointments going on that don't get talked about that are frankly equally as important. These are the people who get the actual work done. I would recommend continue to pay attention. Your opinion does matter. It's up to President Trump, but I know President Trump watches the media, he watches the reactions. And so if you rise up like against Mike Rogers, I think he pays attention. You know, and you watch how the news media covers all this stuff. Like, it seems like every one of these people is the worst person on earth. When you see the left-wing news media do that, you know that's the right person, right? Because they're driving the left crazy. We generally like that. I can say unequivocally, when it comes to the left-wing legacy corporate media, you cannot hate them enough. You literally just can't hate them enough. Why? Because they are not just dishonest. They are not just biased, but they are evil. And you want case number one, evidence number one, just take a look at the way that they've covered the Laken Riley trial. Laken Riley was the Georgia student, nursing student, who was brutally murdered by an illegal alien in this country. We now know from the testimony that illegal alien was flown by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's administration to Georgia. It was known that he was a criminal. Okay, this is interesting. It was known that when he got to New York, he committed more crimes, and then they put him on a flight and flew him, courtesy of your tax dollars, to Georgia, where he took the life of innocent and wonderful nursing student Laken Riley, who, by the testimony in the trial, fought for her life for 15 minutes before her heart stopped. He beat her head in with a rock. I hate to give you details like that, but we need to know this is blood directly on the hands of the Biden administration. They knew this guy was a criminal. They knew there are hundreds of thousands of other criminals who've been intentionally imported into the United States of America, have been flown all over the country by the Biden administration. And when you look at what MSNBC did, nothing. Literally nothing. Not 1 minute of reporting on that trial. As if it doesn't matter that the administration is importing hundreds of thousands of criminal, illegal aliens into our country. As if Laken Riley's life doesn't matter. George Floyd, incessant coverage, wall to wall, forever and ever. to Saint George Floyd, another absolute horrible criminal who was high as a kite on fentanyl, enough to stop his heart. They had to report on that day in, day out, create riots, etc. But Laken Riley, a really wonderful young woman who was a nursing student who wanted to do nothing than help other people. She gets murdered by an illegal alien, doesn't fit the narrative of MSNBC. So they don't report on it even 1 minute. That's outrageous. CNN reported on it 2 minutes in their primetime reporting, 2 minutes. That's all. This shows you that no matter what, you cannot hate the legacy media enough. You really can't. So avoid them, trash them at every turn. Tell your friends not to watch them anymore. There's no excuse. There's all kinds of great other places to get media. All right. Speaking of crazy stuff going on out in the media, let's talk about Jaguar. Jaguar is becoming the latest Bud Light. Apparently, Jaguar has decided to commit suicide as it Bud Lights itself. You know, you're familiar with Jaguars. They make some beautiful cars. The old E-Type, I think, is one of the most beautiful cars ever built. That's a really long hooded 12-cylinder Jaguar. I mean, these are cars that have mystique and sex appeal. And then they decided to burn that brand to the ground. I think producer G has a little bit of a clip of their latest commercial. Do you got that, producer G? Okay, so what was that? What was that? A bunch of weird, and I do mean weird, perverse, crazy, androgynous people with weird haircuts and weird clothes, and men, women, men, who know? No car. Yeah, no car in the commercial. In the Jaguar commercial, there is no Jaguar. Okay, so that's interesting. And by the way, this style of commercial, I mean, we're tired of it. We've been seeing it now for 2 decades, 15 years. I don't know how long. Weird androgynous people doing weird things. And this is just another way to Bud Light yourself. So this is Jaguar burning down the brand. Who do you think the average consumer is for a Jaguar? This is a car that starts at $55,000 for a stripped down version. I think the F-Type, the fanciest, go up to about $115,000, $120,000. Who's buying that? People that look like this? No, probably more people who look like this. Nicely dressed, sophisticated people, people who are walking into that dealership. They're well taken care of. They have the money. They have already probably the prestige, and they want a prestige brand. Jaguar is going to burn it to the ground. They hired a woke DEI infused guy to handle all of their marketing. He's come out because there's been blowback against their marketing. And he says that the blowback is, get it? You're ready for it. You'll be surprised. Hateful and intolerant. Yeah. Well, maybe that's because you're making commercials that are stupid and offensive and have nothing to do with Jaguar. I think Jaguar is burning itself to the ground. They also had, I think, one of the coolest logos in the history of automobiles. That was the leaping, snarling Jaguar. They got rid of that for some weird, I don't even know what it is, just some weird semi-modern font that says Jaguar that looks like maybe a sixth grader was asked to do a redesign project. I have no idea. They're burning that brand to the ground. They're going to get Bud Lighted, and I encourage you to go out and harass them online for doing so. Of course, harass them politely, but do harass them for doing so. And I think this might be the end of the Jaguar brand. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. On other news, we go to Capitol Hill and we go to a representative-elect from Delaware who is a man wearing a dress and makeup and pretending to be a woman. And welcome to 1980s comedy. Nope, just kidding. This is really the Congress. It's not Benny Hill. It's not comedy. In more rational times, you and I would automatically just laugh at a man wearing a dress and makeup pretending to be a woman. And if you're rational, that's still what you do. I'm laughing at this guy pretending to be a woman. His name's Tim, and apparently now he's decided to go by Sarah because he's a bizarre, confused pervert. And the Democrats are holding him up as the icon of the left. Like, they just can't get over this. They got killed in the election over this very issue. And now they have a congressman who is named, I think it's Tim McBride. And and he's going to be clown himself, and he's going to become the clown of the Democrat Party. What's beautiful about what's going on here, though, is the Republicans aren't having it, and they are now passing a rule. I don't know if it's a rule or legislation, but something like that, barring men, meaning this dude who's a congressman in a dress, from using women's dressing rooms and bathrooms. And leading the charge on that is Representative Nancy Mace. To be fair, I don't always agree with Nancy Mace. Something really important you need to know: we can love something a politician does, and we can hate things the same politician does. I'm not joining any politician's team. I'm not endorsing any politician. We'll call the balls and strikes as we see them. In this case, Nancy Mace doing the right thing, saying absolutely not. When asked the question, should this man be able to use the women's bathroom in the legislature, Nancy Mace is standing up and saying no, 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 and triple no. And by the way, she is now receiving death threats from whom? Who would you expect? A bunch of dudes dressed like women. Really? These are some of the most violent people publicly professing violence of anybody you'll see out there. Men, perverts, dressing as women, threatening people who call them out as men. This is how it works. And Nancy Mace is getting death threats. They're putting up signs around the Capitol over the women's bathroom signs. Everything's threatening Nancy Mace, and she says she doesn't care. This is a woman who's a sexual assault survivor. I think she has every right to speak on this subject. By the way, all of us have every right to speak on this subject. Maybe she has a little bit of extra right, and she's saying, not going to allow men in my women's bathroom on the Capitol. And that should be everywhere in the country, nationally. No men in women's bathrooms, no boys in girls' sports, no men in women's sports, et cetera, et cetera. This is common sense. This is something, I mean, this blows my mind. 10 years ago, we didn't even have to have this discussion because it's so freaking ridiculous. And we didn't talk about it because you didn't have to talk about it because nobody would have suggested it. We have to stomp this stuff out. As my friend Michael Knowles says, we need to remove the entire transgender ideology from all of polite society. Look, there have always been some perverted, weird men who dress like women so they can go back to the fringes and the dark alleys where they belong. They don't belong out in public. All right, let's go to the Department of Government Efficiency. Maybe they'll get rid of all these cross-gendered bathrooms. We've got this led now by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, and that is making my heart go thump, thump, thump. Trump. God bless Donald Trump, man. Elon and Vivek, what a team. I think two great business people, two spokespeople against government waste, fraud, and abuse. I just think they're both very articulate defenders of freedom and liberty in the United States of America. One of the things that we want to do is we want to make sure whenever you see them, whenever you write about them, if you write about Doge, which you should on X, tag both Elon and Vivek with hashtag COS project. That's hashtag COS project. Ask them to push COS and make all their work permanent. Instead of doing it for a year or 2 years or 4 years and getting a bunch of stuff done and having it go away in the next Dem administration, let's make it permanent. And those guys can do it. By the way, Elon has the money to make it happen. He could do a giant campaign pushing convention of states. Vivek has money and brains as well, and he could help us out a lot. And so I think we need to get that done. Again, when you're responding to or promoting COS, talking or responding to Elon or Vivek in any of their posts, remember to tag Convention of States Project. All right. Next is Trump's sentencing by Juan Merchan. This trial in New York, where he was convicted on 34 felony accounts, has been a scam from the very beginning. This is a scam of scams. This is legal warfare. Nothing legitimate about this. This was a misdemeanor trumped up, pun intended, to a felony. That was a fake part of it. The judge abused his authority over and over inside the courtroom. I think all of this is appealable anyway. He was supposed to be sentenced A couple of different dates were set for the sentencing, and Judge Juan Merchan, because now he can't interfere with the election anymore, that's what this was always about, has now postponed sentencing indefinitely. That's right, no sentencing of Trump. I think that's very smart. He's given them until December 2nd, Trump's lawyers, time to brief dismissal. I think he's likely to dismiss. The Supreme Court has ruled on a bunch of immunity stuff, which makes the whole case suspect. I think all he was trying to do was hold this open until the election. By the way, for all you folks who say Trump is a convicted felon, no, it's not how it works. Y'all are a bunch of morons. You don't know anything about this. Until he is actually sentenced by the judge, he's not a convicted felon. And so that hasn't happened yet. I don't believe it's going to happen. I think this is fantastic. Let's do away with the election interference, do away with the lawfare, and go back to being a rule of law society. And by the way, somebody needs to go after Juan Merchan, remove his law license. This guy is disgusting, vile, and dishonest, and he needs to pay the price for what he's done. All right, let's go to Q&A, my favorite part of the day. We're going to start with a question from Tracy Grabiak. Tracy says, I love the approach in the open letter to Trump. Remember, conventionofstates.com/Trump. Based on his recent announcement, seems likely he would too. What will be done with the list of people that sign it, and how can we get Trump's attention with it? What will be done is once we reach 1 million petitions, and I don't want to waste his time with less than that. He won't pay attention. Once we reach 1 million on the open letter to Trump, promise you we'll get it in front of them. We have the means to do so. We have the people on the inside who will get it in front of them. And we will make that happen. Go to conventionofstates.com/Trump. Don't forget that Tuesday is Giving Tuesday. And that means this is a day when the entire country is encouraged to give to their favorite causes. And for us, we had a generous donor that says he will triple whatever you give, right? So your gift will be tripled by a generous donor when you text triple to 888-444-8774. Text the word triple to 888-444-8774. All right, what else do we have here? We have another question. Stephen Hughes says, what the hell is going on in the U.S. Senate? I don't know, Stephen. How would I know that? You know, look, the Senate is an insular body. It's a small body. Maybe what you mean is what's going on with the Gates confirmation. Look, you have senators in there that are not hardcore conservatives. And so when you have that, and you've got a bunch of them, then you're going to get something that's not always a hardcore result. I think that's what's going on in the U.S. Senate. Barrett Young asks if there's any update on the COS movement in Kansas. For those of you that don't know, the Convention of States resolution passed the Kansas legislature, Senate, and House by an overwhelming majority, but they have a rule in their constitution, in the state constitution in Kansas, which limits the call for an Article 5 convention to a 2/3 majority in their state legislature. I believe that's completely unconstitutional under the Supremacy Clause, putting an extra burden on a federal function, which is calling for a convention of states. That's now being litigated by some state legislatures. Briefing is going back and forth. I recently saw a brief, I think, on the plaintiff, which is the legislators' response to the AG's response to the original filing, a bunch of technical legal stuff. The bottom line is, I think we're getting closer and closer to a decision. I'm hoping for a decision on that by the end of the year. That's my goal. That's my guess of what's going to happen. Don't forget, if you want to put a question into Convention of States to me, you can write to conventionofstates.com, ask Mark. That's go to conventionofstates.com/ask Mark. Put your questions there. And I love to answer them because you guys are brilliant. You guys are what the movement is all about. And I love having you join me here on the BattleCry. So I look forward to seeing you next week. Come back for the BattleCry next Sunday night. And again, don't forget, conventionofstates.com/Trump. Sign the petition, the open letter to Donald Trump asking him to support Convention of States. God bless you guys. Have a great week. Hey guys, Mark Meckel here, president of Convention of States, coming to you this Thanksgiving with thanks. And I owe you a lot of thanks. We owe you a lot of thanks. The country owes you a lot of thanks because you're out there and you are in the fight for liberty. You guys are on the front lines of the fight for liberty. And I want to start by just thanking everybody who supports Convention of States, whether you follow me here in the BattleCry sometimes, whether you go to our website and just watch us there, maybe you follow me on X. You've indicated your support in some way out there on social media for Convention of States. We appreciate you. That matters a lot. And by doing so, we know that there's great support all across the country for what we're doing. And so I just want to say, again, thanks. I appreciate you. And then to the folks who actually get engaged in the fight, you sign the petition, become a volunteer, maybe you work your way up through the organization, maybe you're in state leadership or you're a district captain or a regional captain or grassroots volunteer. And you guys are just the heart and soul of this organization. You're what we're all about. We're here to serve you. And I know you're serving the nation. And so I just have eternal gratitude for you when I go to sleep every night. That's what I think about, how blessed we are to have grassroots activists like you guys involved in the fight. And then I want to give a special thanks. I can't forget you guys. And that's the people who are willing to give your hard-earned treasure, the donors that make all of this stuff possible. And there are a lot of folks, I get emails, I get letters, handwritten letters, people who literally give $5 a month and they can't afford any more. That's so meaningful. And from the person who gives $5 a month, the people who give a lot more, that are willing to invest their hard-earned treasure in Convention of States because they believe, like I believe, this is the only solution as big as the nation's problems. So as I come into this Thanksgiving with all the turmoil from the political season settling out behind us, with us headed into a new year of possibility and a new year of challenges, I just once again want to say thanks. I think on Thanksgiving, we often think about family and friends that gather around, and hopefully you all have gratitude for that and you're going to have a wonderful Thanksgiving with your family. But I also think it's really important that we say thanks to you for everything that you do. So happy Thanksgiving. I hope you enjoy it with family and friends and good food and good cheer. May God bless you as you move towards the end of the year and into the Christmas season.